Once again, we're here at the Red Quill Media Studio located in Helena, Montana. My name is Steve LaPraim. I'm a candidate for Senate District 42. I am a conservative first and a Republican second. And once again, I'm with my friend David Sanders, and we're going to talk about ethics. David?
Thank you, Steve. It's good to be with you, and it's good to have our Red Quill Media forum to be able to discuss some important issues. I am a candidate for PSC Public Service Commission District 5.
So we're talking about ethics today.
Yeah.
We've decided to have this discussion. You approached me on it a couple weeks ago and said, what do you think? And I said, yeah, we should do it. Let me marinate on it, are my words that I like to use when I want to think about something. And ethics is a very broad statement. There's many types of ethics out there, and this particular set we're talking about is basically candidacy ethics, or running a race. And specifically, we're speaking about whether or not candidates can run in a district or not, whether they live in the district or don't have to live in the district. There's a lot of different scenarios. However, I pulled out the Montana Constitution, Article 4, starts there. Here's some precursors. So Article 4, Section 2, qualified elector, any citizen of the United States, 18 years of age or older, who meets registration and residence requirements provided by a law or by law, is qualified elector unless he or she is serving a sentence for a felony. I won't go into much more of that, or maybe of unsound mind. We can go there. Section 3 states the legislature shall provide by law the requirements for resident registration, absentee voting, administration of elections. It may provide for a system of poll booth registration and shall ensure purity of elections and guard against abuses of the electoral powers. That's a very powerful statement. So the Constitution lays it out, and it's up to the legislature to provide the laws. Section 8, this is about terms. I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to bring that up. Did you know that the Montana Constitution goes over U.S. term limits, U.S. seats? So just an interesting snippet, I thought I'd bring it up. 6 or more years in any 12-year period as a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, and 12 or more years in any 24-year period as a member of the U.S. Senate. So, but it doesn't really go over residency. So it does and it doesn't. It says that the legislature is supposed to provide that law. Okay. So I did some research on all this just because I think it's important, and I'm just giving a little background to those who are maybe viewing this. It's not an old thing in this state for people to run that don't live in their districts. But there's some specific rules. There's a document that was put out. This is before redistricting by the state legislator committee, Energy and Telecommunications Interim Committee. A Secretary of State or other authorized official may not certify a candidate's nomination or election to the Public Service Commission or print or cause to be printed on any ballot the name of a candidate for the Public Service Commission if, at the end of the current term of the office, the candidate will have served more than 16 years, basically. So it talks a lot about timelines, and a lot of the documentation I could dig up as far as specific timelines, how long somebody can serve. I mean, there's a ton of information out there. Not easy to find. I mean, you just sit down on the Google machine, I call it, and if you just decided to start Googling, I mean, even if you used AI, I know everybody doesn't like AI, Chat GPT. I mean, it's literally hitting a library that's the size of the Smithsonian as far as data information. Where's this information at? It's not very clear. It's kind of a mess.
Yeah, there's a difference, though. In terms of the Public Service Commission, the residency requirements and the legal requirements for seeking that office are probably more specific than any other office in Montana, because the Public Service Commission was divided into 5 districts, and each of those districts was designed to have equal representation before the Public Service Commission. And so those 5 districts, each of them, after redistricting in 2023, so this is fairly recent, each of those districts is comprised of, actually, 20 state house districts. So we have 100 members of the State House of Representatives, 20 districts each. And this is to get at sort of the one person, one vote standard, which is upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. So when that happened in 2023, and there had always been a specific requirement about public service commissioners living in the districts they represent. That is a statutory requirement. But we're in an unusual position right now because I find myself facing an incumbent, if you can believe this, an incumbent that is now running in this 5th district against me. And she does not meet the residency requirement by any reasonable judgment of the printed record and her sworn testimony to the Montana state government. So, for example, when she filed to run for office in this 5th district, she filed an oath of candidacy which I have here, which she filed, and that oath of candidacy says that she lives in Helena, Montana. Well, everyone who knows her and knows of where she lives, where she keeps her medical offices, where she's registered her cars, where she's been registered to vote previously, all of that points to Flathead County rather than Lewis and Clark County, where Helena is. And furthermore, her recent filing for her exemption, her homestead exemption, says that she lives in Marion, Montana. And the address that she lists for that homestead exemption is some 22 and a half miles outside of the western boundary of the district. So it's not like it's close. It's not like maybe somebody made a mistake reading a map. This, to me, unfortunately, reflects a deliberate intent to deceive the voters of this great state. And, people talk about election fraud, and a lot of people, especially people who are liberals or Democrats, might say, oh, election fraud doesn't really exist. You're destroying democracy if you say election fraud exists. Well, I can tell you that some attempt to commit election fraud has happened in every election in the United States since, about 1789. And so, but what you don't often see, often that when people call out election fraud, it's after an election's happened.
Sure.
It's, the election would have been different were it not for this irregularity or that irregularity. The irregularity in the race that I'm running right now is that the incumbent is not eligible to be elected in that district. And this is well in advance of election day, of the primary day at least. So, at this stage, though, absentee ballots have been printed and have been mailed out. And this didn't come to my attention until fairly recently. But I can tell you right now that I think, my opponent says, oh, I want to serve with integrity and I want to serve with honor. And the only honorable thing to do, the only thing that she can do that would preserve any integrity, any shred of integrity that she might have left, would be to withdraw from this race immediately, suspend her campaign, and say that she, even if she were nominated, that she would not run and that she would not serve, because it's a direct violation of sworn testimony that she's given to the state of Montana.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a big enchilada, many layers there. But it's very. What's interesting about this, and I appreciate what you say about, the argument around election fraud or ethics or things of that nature, and that there's a group of people out there that believe it doesn't exist, and then if it does exist, then our democracy is kind of a lie. It's kind of like saying the Bible is not God's word. Well, if that's the case, then what am I doing? Why are we doing this? Why are we running? That's always a question I have. Outside of why are you running, which we get a lot of questions as candidates, why are you running? When I have basically 3 things on why I'm running. But outside of that, why are you running if you know that you are not eligible? And then why, and let's just say this, if your eligibility was on the fringe, okay, then what? I mean, this is all very public information, not hard to find. I mean, I did do some research on this. The Secretary of State does have a sheet here that's the 2026 Office's Qualifications and Fees report from the MCA, 13-10-202 on PSC. It specifically calls out districts 1 and 5, and you're running in 5. And the qualifications: 18 years of age, U.S. citizen. So that's pretty basic. You must, but essentially, reside in the district.
Absolutely.
So that has to be your primary address. So then, you do have the Homestead Act that's out there. Prior to the Homestead Act, you could marginally say, I have 3 homes in the state. There wasn't a Homestead Act to declare, and you could say, yeah, I live in the Helena one 90% of the time, or something of that nature. But the Homestead Act, if you want the benefit of the Homestead Act, actually makes you declare what your primary residence is, and your primary residence is where you spend most of your time.
No, that's absolutely right. In fact, even beyond that, the state common law, if you will, case law in Montana shows that the standard is sort of a preponderance of evidence about where you take your nightly repose. And so that means, like, where do you lay your head down at most nights?
Sure.
Well, in this case, I think everyone in this district who's followed this race knows that my opponent lives in Marion, Montana. She has an office in Kalispell, Montana, which she visits multiple days per week while she treats the Public Service Commission job as a 1-day-a-week, part-time, 6-figure side hustle. And so her cars are registered in Flathead County. All of the things that pertain to her life, save a recent change of address, which she filed on her oath of candidacy. And this is an important thing. It's an oath.
Sure.
She had to swear an oath that she now resides in the apartments above the PSC offices in Helena. Well, I can guarantee you that she does not spend a majority of her nights in those offices. She spends a majority of those nights, by all accounts, up in the Flathead County area west of the western boundary of the district. Her office is even west of the western boundary of the district. And another thing that was revealed to me just recently, and it was also listed in the request for investigation, filed with the Lewis and Clark County Attorney's Office, our local DA, for him to investigate and prosecute, is the fact that she previously, when you change your voter registration, which she recently did from Flathead County to Lewis and Clark County, it lists your previous address of your voter registration. Now that address was not even her primary residence. That address was her medical office. You can't, and in fact, it is a felony to knowingly list your an address other than your primary residence when you register to vote. So it listed her previous residence as being at, and I don't want to dox her, so I don't want to give the exact place, but it is a place outside of the district that is her medical office, and she listed that as her previous address on her voter registration. If that, by definition, is voter fraud. Now, what she's trying to commit now is different. That, I would argue, that what she's trying to commit now is not just voter fraud, it's candidate fraud. And that's something we just can't have.
No, I mean, I went through and I looked at a lot of the code, the MCA. I went through a lot of it. I've got it on this tablet here. We're not going to pull it up because I don't want to spend 3 hours on this because our producer doesn't have 3 hours to give us. Otherwise, we could. But there's so much that points to exceptions for like mail-in ballot, like absentee ballot, like you're in the military, you're stationed in a different town, you're on a base, you're attached to the military, but your residency is still in Montana. So there are some situations.
And we have provisions for that in the law.
But there's not really any provision for what you're describing because it's just flat out illegal. And that's the thing that what really boggles my mind about all this is it seems as if these things get swept under the rug because is it just too inconvenient to talk about? Is it too inconvenient to pursue? There's been, obviously, we're in the heat of the primary election period. There's people producing smear ads. There's different folks. Mm-hmm. This is not that. This is something more factual. This is literally factual. This is a real thing, and this is a election integrity issue, in my opinion. So recently I was, and I don't have a problem saying it here, somebody had noted that I'd been sued by the state for not paying my taxes. So I called the DOR and said, hey, I'd like to find my lawsuit and settle it with you. And they looked at me like I was an alien, and they said, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, if you have a lawsuit against me, I'd like to know about it, A, and then B, I'd sure like to take care of it. They said, Steve, we're the DOR. If we want your money, we got the full power to take your money. So those things, those are part of the mudslinging that happens in primary elections, especially when we have so many primary opponents going on at the same time. This is not that, though. I mean, this is not even that.
No, it's not. This is, and you did a perfectly upstanding ethical thing, as long as we're talking about ethics.
Sure.
You wanted to find out legitimately, do I owe this? Do I not owe this? What is going on? And so you took action proactively and did exactly the right thing ethically. What Commissioner Bukacek is doing, and this is an even more disturbing thing as far as I'm concerned, Steve, is what she's doing is part of a pattern of unethical conduct. So this particularly trying to obfuscate your real primary residence, which is outside of this district and actually in Commissioner Fielder's district, that's one thing. But this is part of a pattern. Just the other day, there was a complaint filed against her by another member of the Public Service Commission about, and it mentioned her other complaints by another commissioner about her, about them finding medical records from her medical practice in the Public Service Commission's copying room. In fact, there are two copy rooms where there are copiers at the Public Service Commission. I know because I used to be the executive director of the Public Service Commission.
Sure.
There's one that's in the hallway where the commissioners are. There's another one in the back hallway near where the customer assistance and regulatory staff are. And apparently in at least one of those rooms, there was found some papers relating to Commissioner Bukacek's medical practice, and so they filed an ethics complaint, I think internally within the, I think one has been filed internally within the PSC with their staff about, and there are provisions there for disciplining members who commit ethical violations. And then additionally, an ethics complaint was filed with the Commissioner of Political Practices about this discovery of these documents. Well, the Commissioner of Political Practices is a good person and an upstanding civil servant, but they don't really have a big investigative staff to go find out exactly what went on. And so apparently when they interviewed Commissioner Bukacek about this, she said, well, I bring documents down for recycling. And so that's why they were there. Well,
is that a HIPAA violation?
Well, that's for somebody else to determine, honestly. But if you leave records around that leave people's medical records to which they should have a reasonable expectation of privacy, and you leave those around unsecured, that is not a good practice, and it may very well be a violation of health privacy standards. But in addition to that, nobody finds it credible, at least nobody that I've talked to at the PSC finds it credible, that a commissioner who runs a medical practice would drive documents 3.5 hours from Kalispell, where ostensibly where their medical office is, all the way to Helena to recycle them in a state recycling bin. And the recycling bin is not, if they're locked, they actually, it's a dumpster with a padlock on it.
And I have one in my office.
So the state will come every month, the contractor will come and empty that recycling bin, and those documents can be shredded and recycled or whatever they do with them. But in this case, they were found not if you believe the complaint, and more than one commissioner has complained about this, if you believe these complaints against Commissioner Bukacek, they were found elsewhere, not even in the recycling bin, because you can't get in the recycling bin. It's locked. But they were found elsewhere. So this the defense that she presented, that these things were, she brought them down to recycle, rings a little bit hollow to me. And it, in addition to that pattern of practice, if you will, in terms of dealing with ethical matters in a way that doesn't ring true to the average ear, I would also say that this business of, well, I'm going to accept a full-time salary, a six-figure salary to be a public service commissioner, but she's only going to work 1 day a week at the Public Service Commission. She has to drive from Kalispell because it's her home. She drives down from Kalispell, or Marion,
sure,
I guess, drives down to Helena, works Tuesdays when they have the PSC business meetings, unless she has something else to do, and she doesn't. She just does a Zoom call, instead of showing up in person, which I think every commissioner should do, is to at least show up in person to represent the people of your district in Helena. But if you can't manage to do that on a full-time basis while you're getting a full-time salary, that strikes me as highly unethical as well. So it's a practice of this unethical behavior that I find troubling in Commissioner Bukacek, and it's one of the reasons I decided to run against her.
Yeah, I mean, we call that, I think I've said it earlier, that's a full-time wage for a part-time job. And, it's usually frowned upon. I mean, I have employees that are work for me. They're hourly, not salary.
Right.
Salary. Can't seem to speak after lunch, sorry. But they're paid hour for hour.
Yeah.
Pound for pound. That's what it is.
Even in my case, I'm a salaried employee of the state auditor's office.
Sure.
I took this half of the day off.
Sure.
I took the day off. I'm on my personal time.
Sure.
I am not charging the state so I can campaign. That's not ethical, and so I won't do it.
Yeah.
I'm taking my personal time to do this and not charging it to the state, and that's my set of ethics. Okay, I think it should be everyone's, but I tell you, I see some things in this race, particularly with one of my opponents, Commissioner Bukacek. I've got some real problems with her standards of ethics, which I think are too low to hold public office in Montana. I'll just state it as bluntly as that.
I can see in your eyes the frustration, the concern, the sincerity. I believe everybody can who's watching this. What I don't know and what I don't understand is, how did it slide through the SOS process?
Well, the Secretary of State's office, I know some of the people who work there.
Sure.
And they're good people.
Yeah,
and they try really hard. But when you have literally hundreds of candidates for office,
Sure.
And then when you get them to sign an oath of candidacy, you and I both did it.
Yeah.
Some people take that oath very, very seriously, like you and I do. And then there are other people who just see it as a formality and something they just a form they need to fill out. And, an oath to me is something that I swear before God.
Sure.
And it speaks to your very soul, or it should. And I can't violate an oath.
No.
You take when you take a solemn oath, and I was just yesterday at the wedding of the clerk of the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
I saw you before I headed over there. I wanted to offer my support to you. You were speaking, and I'm sure wowing a crowd of Helena Republicans.
Oh yeah.
And so, but honestly, I drove to that wedding service, and I saw him offer this oath to, I'll say his name, Bowen Greenwood, is a very good friend of mine.
Good man.
He's a great person. He's he's one of our top elected officials in Montana as the clerk of the Supreme Court. And I saw the sincerity with which he gave an oath before God and all those assembled, family and friends, and an oath he was pledging to his new bride, and her oath back to him. That is a solemn swearing of love and commitment, and doing that before God. That is absolutely paramount to maintain. When you keep an oath, when you swear out an oath, maintain that oath. And it's something that I know both Bowen and Mary Jo will do, but it's something that I'm afraid Ann Bukacek has failed to do in terms of keeping her oath to the voters of the 5th District and the people of Montana.
Yeah. I think that when somebody makes an oath, other people have faith that person on making that oath. They have faith in the oath that was taken, and
Right.
so they believe, that was genuine and that was sincere, that it was accurate, that it was, 100% correct.
Yeah.
And this is the frustrating part about something we're facing as candidates every day. The general public struggles to trust candidates. They struggle to trust government. And I don't believe that this is encouraging that kind of the trust we actually need people to have in us either.
That's right. And with good reason that they don't trust government, and they
Yeah.
don't trust a lot of the people in government,
Yeah.
because those people have taken oaths and they've failed
Yeah.
the people. You take an oath when you become a public servant.
Yeah.
I had to take an oath when I was executive director of the Public Service Commission. I took an oath as a member of the staff of the Montana State Auditor. I took an oath when I entered military service.
Yeah.
Certainly took an oath when I married my wife. And you take these oaths, and if you don't take them seriously, well, honestly, I think there's a judgment for you that comes, but that doesn't come until after an election's over. In fact, it doesn't come until after your life on Earth is over. But what I think we could do, and I'm starting to see some of it. You mentioned the Secretary of State's office. They just recently, in fact, I think it was in yesterday's newspaper, the Secretary of State's office called into question whether or not former Senate President Jason Ellsworth, how he would jive two oaths. One, an oath to serve the people of his state Senate district, which is in Ravalli County, the western edge of the state, and his new oath of candidacy, where he now claims that his primary residence is in Circle, Montana, or near Circle, Montana, so he can run against Representative Jerry Schillinger. Now, why did he choose that? Well, maybe he has a piece of property there. I don't know about. I haven't researched his property ownership around the state. I know he's a pretty wealthy man, so he probably owns more than one property. But I will say this: the idea was just to run against Representative Schillinger. I think, and if he's already been sort of voted out of the body, if you will, as a regular member of the state Senate. He can't serve on an interim committee. He can't serve on any committee right now. But the Secretary of State's office legitimately called into question, like, if you've signed an oath of candidacy that your primary residence is now, in Circle, Montana, then maybe you can't adequately represent the people in Ravalli County anymore, and you should resign from that office. So they're trying to deal with these things. That's certainly a very high-profile case where the former Senate president is very controversial, and has had a very problematic career in the Senate, is now running for office against a very well-respected member of the state House in a part of the state that he has no connection to. Well, it's not completely unlike Commissioner Bukacek living in Marion, Montana, and suddenly deciding on the eve of the election that she now lives in Helena, and it's just you can't pull the wool over the voters' eyes forever, and I wish she would recognize that, and I wish she would stand up to her ethical obligations and withdraw from this race, so that the voters can really decide between the eligible candidates who are out there.
Yeah, and it really negates the one-for-one vote, right? I mean, the true nature of people having the chance to vote in that PSC district, one of 5 districts, evenly split, or supposed to be, and you do want that in this scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know she's told people, from what I understand, she's told people that she has designs on higher office. And if she really has designs on higher office, I think the smart thing for her to do would be to admit this ethical lapse, take remedial action to fix it by withdrawing from this race, and then if she gets herself right with her own ethics and the state's laws, then pursue another office at some other time. But for right now, she is not, in my opinion, and I hope in the opinion of the Lewis and Clark County Attorney, she's not eligible to serve as a public service commissioner from District 5 and not eligible to run in this race.
Noted on that, and duly noted. What does it look like? Let's just say that there is that scenario where she pulls out, or B, she gets the primary nomination, but then the county attorney gets involved, and then all of a sudden, what's that look like? What's the next step? What happens there?
Well, I don't know. I still have some hope that she will do the ethical thing.
Sure.
Do the only thing where she could preserve a shred of integrity.
Yeah.
But I also know she can be a very, very stubborn person, and a very pugnacious person. I know she's in the middle of a huge controversy right now at the Public Service Commission, which is played out in federal court in recent days, where she and Commissioner Fielder and Commissioner Wellborn decided that that they would prevent Commissioner Molnar from being in the PSC building. They tried to get him removed from office, but then when the governor refused to remove him from office for lack of evidence, they instead decided to just ban him from the building, which I think was almost ludicrous, given that it was on the eve of the most important contested case to come before the Public Service Commission in decades, which is the proposed merger between Northwestern Energy, not really a merger, it's more of a sort of a stock swap buyout,
Sure.
By Black Hills Corporation. And so on the eve of that case, they decide that they want to not allow Commissioner Molnar, who's been very skeptical of the efficacy of that merger, they want to bar him from participating in the process, which I thought was almost laughable. But, because it's a serious issue, it wasn't laughable. It was dangerous.
Yeah.
And so when they tried to do that, Commissioner Molnar did the courageous thing. He went to U.S. District Court for the District of Montana to assure that his voice wouldn't be silenced, and the voice of 1/5 of the state of Montana in the district that he serves wouldn't be silenced by these 3 commissioners. And so he actually filed for a temporary restraining order against them personally, and that was granted by Judge Donald Malloy in federal district court. And I have reason to believe that he will assert his rights beyond that temporary restraining order going forward, or at least he should do that and seek a permanent injunction against these kinds of actions against him. Really, the nonsense at the Public Service Commission, perpetrated by Commissioner Bukacek and followed along by Commissioner Fielder and Commissioner Wellborn, and this petty infighting that they have right now, which has now gone beyond petty into grand mal seizure type of infighting.
Yeah, I know what that's like.
Yeah, this is it creates a paralysis within the commission to actually do its job. It creates a pall over the staff because members of the staff have been afraid to voice their opinions. Excuse me, I'm about to.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry.
Bless you.
They're afraid to voice their opinions.
Sure.
Because of fear of reprisal. Recently, some of those reprisals seem to have taken place against members of the staff. And this kind of thing just has to end. We have to get the Public Service Commission back focused on its job and focused on doing that job ethically and honorably for all the people of the state.
Yeah. In modern terms, we would call this a toxic relationship, and we would tell some young person that's in a relationship like this they should probably get out of that relationship because it's become toxic, not healthy. Right. And the overarching thing is you hear things like this, and then you wonder at what cost is this to the taxpayer? That's a problem. And then in the meantime, with this infighting and some of these things, and whether it's pithy or not, I'm not in the room, I'm not seeing it all, but it seems that way. What are they doing in the meantime to operate the PSC correctly as full-time employees of the PSC, even though they're elected positions? That requires a full-time job, full-time presence, in my opinion. How are they able to get anything done for the state of Montana, for the ratepayers, for their constituents, when this is the focus?
Yeah,
that's a problem.
It's a huge problem, and the answer is they can't, and they haven't been able to. That's why they've been so ineffective and so, I've said to people in a lighter vein, I've said, that the PSA's turned from what it was when I was there, which was an exemplary state agency.
Sure.
I mean, I won a governor's award for excellence in performance in 2024 for a team that I led at the PSC that had really turned the agency around. And then in 2025 and now into 2026, the agency has become a clown show. The only difference between the PSC and an actual clown show is sometimes an actual clown show is actually funny. But the PSC right now, there's nothing funny about it.
No, it doesn't sound
tragic.
Good. Yeah.
It's tragic, and it is. It's something that should make every Montanan righteously indignant, because there are people acting in their names who are not acting like rational, stable adults, and they are not acting in the interests of the ratepayers of Montana, let alone looking at things that the PSC should looking at, which is future energy demand, future power supply, future environmental considerations, the future of Montana, and not just in the energy sphere. There are also important safety regulatory responsibilities that the PSC has, which are going ignored, at least by the commission, not by the staff. The staff there is really good. I know a lot of the staff there, and for the most part, they're outstanding. The regulatory staff, the safety-related regulatory staff dealing with pipelines and natural gas storage, and the railroads, our economic regulators, our accounting regulators, all really, really good staff. But I tell you right now, this is an emergency situation, and it is so much of an emergency that that just recently in the Energy and Technology Interim Committee, and they're looking at changing the structure of the PSC. And so I'm not sure that their prescription is necessarily right to treat the ills of the PSC. I told one legislator, who I have a great deal of respect for, who called me the other day. He's a Democrat, but he's a thoughtful guy, And he called me up and he said, David, what is your take on our prescription for change? And their prescription for change is to have an appointed commission, to not have any elected commissioners anymore.
Right.
And so to take that voice away from the people and the voters. And I said, as you know, I'm a candidate for the PSC now, and I wouldn't run if I didn't think I could be an effective elected representative for the people of my district, and I think I will be. However, I said, if you just go to an appointed commission, there's no guarantee that no matter how many commissioners you appoint, 3, 5, 7, whatever the number is, there's no guarantee that all of those people will be angels either.
No.
And so but what there can be, and what I think there must be, is that there must be some level of qualifications for the people who serve on the Public Service Commission. So do they have any record of public service?
Well,
the
that
first
helps.
2 words in the Public Service Commission are public service.
Yeah.
So do they have any record? Do they know how government works? Do they have any experience in the regulatory arena?
Sure.
I mean, just because you worked for a monopoly utility doesn't mean that you know how to regulate a monopoly utility. In fact, it might mean that you just know how to steer away from a monopoly utility being regulated.
Sure.
What kinds of ethical firewalls are you putting up so members of the Public Service Commission, it won't just be a revolving door with the monopoly utilities? What kind of track record do you have that's proven that you know how to protect consumers? And what kind of economic training do you have so you can understand how utility rates work, or what kind of responsibilities have you had in the past in a safety-related field?
Sure.
So you can provide adequate safety regulation. There's a lot of things to consider and unpack there. But there's we require, for example, that our Attorney General be an attorney. Well, there's no reason why we couldn't require that public service commissioners have some sort of background in public utility regulation.
Sure. Absolutely. And I think overarching in all of this, I mean, aside from the experience, aside from the voters voting these folks in, what I really see missing here, and this was brought up by another candidate for a different race, completely different type of race yesterday that I was listening to at the Patriots lunch. We have a culture issue, it seems, and the culture is not conducive to getting things done, and it doesn't seem as if everybody's on the same page, and right. I think that's a problem. You want a good organization, you want a good culture.
Yeah.
You want things to work well, you create good culture.
Right.
Good culture makes a big difference. If you have good culture, you keep your people. The attrition is very low, and you really want that in some of these positions that are really deciding the fate of the ratepayer, safety out there, all those life safety things, because it's all of the above, right?
Right.
And so culture is a big deal.
And culture comes, at least in my experience, particularly in government, it comes from leadership.
Absolutely. Pretty much
so
anywhere.
The two are absolutely related. And so what the Public Service Commission hasn't had since James Brown left as president of the Public Service Commission, and since I left as the executive director, what it has not had is solid leadership. The leadership has been uneven at best, and frankly pernicious at worst. It's been part of the problem.
Sure.
And so it needs new leadership desperately. And I think I can provide that new leadership. I think I can be even more effective than I was as the executive director, as a public service commissioner. I think, and I'm just going to take another step forward. Steve. I think our state legislature needs new leaders
Sure.
to step forward, and it's one of the reasons why I'm so happy that you've decided to step forward and serve in the state Senate, because we desperately need new and better and more energetic and more thoughtful leaders
Sure.
in both houses of our state legislature. Part of the problem that we have in so many of these ethics questions that come before our government are because the laws that were drawn up previously didn't, to me, reflect great leadership. I mean, we have people that come to the legislature and only are engaged in bills in which they have a direct financial interest. I mean, we've had that a lot in recent years.
Yeah.
We had a legislator from the western part of the state who, mostly just focused on bills relating to businesses where he and his wife had a direct financial interest. I mean, we can't do things like that. It's just crazy. And the ethical lapse that Senator Ellsworth had from his private business dealings and then trying to enter into a public business dealing on a contract that was, a $170,000 contract, but there was a $100,000 limit on public contracting, so he tried to break it into two $85,000 contracts. Well, I give him points for math skills and being able to divide 170 by 2, but I give him no points for the ethics of doing that. If you're trying to cut a contract that is bigger than the state limit, then you have to put it out for competitive bid. That's just deal with the state ethics laws as they are, or try to make them better and more stringent to protect the people's pocketbooks.
Yeah.
But to do the opposite because it's convenient or because it somehow serves your interest. Even what we have now with regard to term limits, and this might not make me terribly popular, but I will tell you, for a member of the legislature, if we have term limits that basically limit members to 8 years, so we have a true citizens legislature.
Sure.
Then does it make sense for us to let somebody serve for 4 terms in the House, 4 2-year terms in the House, and then go serve 2 4-year terms in the Senate, and then go back and serve 4 2-year terms in the House, and then 2 more terms in the Senate, and just go back and forth like that? Because at that point, somebody's serving, 16, 18, 20, 30 years in the legislature. Those aren't any real term limits at all.
No,
that's just a window dressing, a smoke screen to try to pull the wool over the eyes of the voters.
Yeah, it's a chamber to chamber flop is what it is, and for constitutional conservative candidates. By the way, I'm in favor of term limits in the federal government and the state government, because what we miss is, as true, citizen legislators, is there's an element of you that is no longer in the trenches anymore, no longer fighting those battles on a day-to-day basis as a just average Joe, right?
Right.
And so when you're in so long, and now I can't say by experience because this is my first time running.
Sure.
But my observance is that those folks seem to become disconnected from their constituents. They're not in the trenches fighting day to day on the day-to-day issues, the same affordability issues, the same water rights issues, the same. I mean, I'm sure it plagues these people at one point or touches them at one point, but you lose connection to the people that voted for you. And I think that's tough, right? When you've created such a gap between you and what's going on with the average everyday citizen, regardless of where they come from. And I think that's why people are so frustrated. I mean, this is a whole nother conversation about ethics that we can go in really, really deep on for hours and days and months and years probably. And, you see it every day. People are very frustrated with the midterm turnout is very low right now. And
Yes.
I mentioned this earlier, but very low.
Yes.
Like anemically low, like
Yes.
dangerous.
Right.
People are so mad. They're so frustrated out there because they feel that no matter what they do, no matter how they vote, no matter who they put their faith and trust in, that it's just going to be the status quo over and over again. And that's just
Right.
a new face making new promises,
Right.
but it's going to be the same old, same old, same old. And we have a very unique opportunity here in the United States and in the state to really flip this system on its ear and actually mean what we say. And in my talk yesterday that I had, we can't just be voting. If I get elected, if you get elected, let's just say we're both serving together, and you're in the PSC and I'm in the Senate, and if we're passing legislation to get reelected, then we're not doing a service to anybody.
No.
Now, as a candidate, I've enjoyed the ride, and somebody asked me, what's your favorite part about being a candidate? It's not the pomp and circumstance, I'll tell you that much right now. That's not my thing. I really don't care for that. What I really like, what I've really grown to enjoy is the connections I've made, the people I've met, the genuine, heartfelt, honest, salt-of-the-earth people that I've met throughout this whole process that have become friends or folks that are voting for me or whatever, because we've had a chance to connect, and I can see where they're coming from. They can see the sincerity that I have in wanting to do the right thing. And I want to hold on to that. If there's anything that's addicting, it would be that people trust you. I don't care about the dinners necessarily. They're nice. I don't care about dressing fancy. As you can see, this is what I wear all the time. I'm a tradesman. I'll put on a shirt and tie when it's required. But the truth of the matter is I represent my constituents. This is what's important. You represent your constituents.
Right.
That's what's important. We've changed. Things have changed. And if we're there for personal power, I have this. This is bragging rights. I'm this guy. It's kind of cool to say that, hey, I'm this guy. But if that's your drive, then there's a reason why people are sick of it.
No, I think one of the reasons why you and I have become friends throughout this campaign cycle is I see the same thing in you that I see in all the people that I admire. And that especially people who are either in or aspiring to be in government. I've been in and around government just about my entire life. My father spent a life of service to the United States Army. I started my service in the United States Army the day my father and mother pinned my second lieutenant's bars on my shoulders the day at my commissioning ceremony.
Sure.
And I've been in and around government, whether working as a lowly staff member in the Congress of the United States, or working as the head of a subordinate agency within the U.S. Department of Transportation, or being here in Montana and working in the Public Service Commission, the State Auditor's Office, and now running for office myself as a Public Service Commissioner. It's about the service, and part of the service, what gives you the right to serve the people, is, at least in the representative republic that we both cherish, is to connect with the voters, and then have them confer that responsibility on you, and that right on you, and that's the great thing about it. So yes, there are lots of great things about running for office, and the great people you meet, and the great events you go to, and the great sights you see while running for office, because you really get to know people on a completely different level. But the thing that is most compelling to me, and it happens whether or not I get elected to this office, I believe I will, but what's really compelling to me is the chance to serve, to put this agency back on it's what should be its true course.
Yeah.
To stop the toing and froing and this and that and the pitching around with each other, but the commissioners have been going through recently, and they've been putting the people of Montana through it. But to take that ship, if you will, and right the path, right the ship, put it on a true path, and then be able to do good work for the people of Montana, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. I think getting the correct heading and pointing that ship the right direction is really, I think, what's needed overall.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's exciting beyond all the stuff, all the campaigning, all the politicking, all the other things.
Yeah.
The concept, the idea, the thought-provoking thing that you could possibly be a part of making history and doing the right thing and making life better for everybody is very attractive.
Right.
And I'm excited about that.
The thing that lies at the foundation of all of that is what we've talked about today.
Yeah.
It's ethics.
Ethics, big deal.
It's ethics in making sure that we have genuine people with ethical hearts and ethical practices participating in this process in a way that allows the voters to discern among the eligible candidates, and only the eligible candidates, that allows them to discern what they want, what path they want to choose, and then for us to execute that for them and with them and by them, if you will. So.
Yeah, I enjoy this conversation. I appreciate you bringing it up. I think that this is serious stuff, and I think we have to take this serious. And I believe that the biggest advantage we have at this moment in our lives is we have the ability to be here at the Red Quill Media Studio to have these conversations and also share it with the public as far as, look, from an educational standpoint, this is what is. This is what is. It's fact. It's what is. And you can't argue with what is. And the idea that we can be transparent on some of these things and some of these other candidate conversations that have happened in this room. These are real situations. This isn't for, again, pomp and circumstance. It's not to really blow up our egos. It's not to say, hey, look at me, I'm on this. It's fun to do. But the truth of the matter is, and I know that you feel the same way, when I set out to do this, when many candidates set out to do this, run for office, it was for, we believe, for the good of the people and the voter, and to make good decisions, to right the ship, to stop the hemorrhaging, to just clean it up. Let's just get us to a good zero here so we can adjust. Educate the voter. That is the missing link, I think, in a lot of the things that are going on in our elections and in both the federal and the state level is educating the voter on what is. And that's why these things are important. We talked about school choice the other day. You weren't here on that one, but the truth of the matter is there's lots of different things that come up in this media, in the studio, that's with candidates, with experts, with people that are important. The most important thing is that the average citizen knows what's going on. And it's important because they need to make informed, good decisions. We want to make it attainable for them, right? You want to make this information attainable for them. It's not
Absolutely.
hard to find it. You want them to know that we're serious about ethics. You want them to know that we're serious about the issues that we're actually campaigning on. You want them to know that this is authentic. And so we have this opportunity to do it. And it's a blessing to us. It's a blessing to me, anyways, that we get to do this and get to know each other, and also know that if elected, that we have some allies and some folks we can work with on continuing the goal. And the goal is to serve the state of Montana.
Yeah, absolutely. There's nothing more important, and you mentioned the fact that maybe some people are in this for the wrong reason. Some people, especially after they've been around for a while, there's a certain amount of reading their own press releases or aggrandizing themselves or whatever. But I think you and I, people who approach this with a servant's heart, really get to see that. I think rather than the process of running for office being aggrandizing, it's actually incredibly humbling.
Oh, man.
And it does make you humble to think that, there are people out there that believe, that want the right thing to be done on their behalf, that trust people to do the right thing on their behalf. And if you approach that with a servant's heart, it can't help but humble you and motivate you to work as hard as you can for the people of Montana. And that's one of the things I think you and I can definitely agree on. And we're both very grateful to Red Quill Media. I'm grateful for your friendship, and I look forward to serving with you going forward.
Same here, David. Thank you
right.
for your time today. And Memorial Day weekend is in front of us.
Yeah, please remember our fallen service people who also gave selflessly for our nation.
Amen to that, because without them, we wouldn't be able to do this today.
Yes.
That is the fact. So honor those folks and pray for your candidates. We appreciate your support. Thanks, David.
Thank you.